So what if basically everything we think we know about our savage ancestors is just wrong? Today, we're diving into a pretty radical theory that completely flips the script on human nature. The argument? That by looking inward at the way our own minds are built, we can actually deduce a forgotten history of who we once were. Let's get into it.
And this is the question, right? It's at the heart of everything. Are we, at our core, hardwired to be selfish and violent? Or is that just a story we've been telling ourselves for a very long time? This one question is the launchpad for the entire theory we're going to unpack today.
I mean, this is a viewpoint we've all heard, right? You might even believe it yourself. The source material points out that this is often seen as the calm, realistic, unsentimental take on who we are. But the theory we're exploring is going to challenge this idea, and challenge it head on.
And here it is, the core challenge to that so-called realistic view. What if we're judging the entirety of human history based on its most recent, and maybe its most dysfunctional chapter? The argument isn't just that our modern perspective is a little off, it's that it might be completely and totally skewed.
Okay, so how could we possibly know what happened so long ago without a time machine or, written records? Well, this theory proposes something wild. We don't need to dig for bones or artifacts. The clues are right here, inside our own heads. We can use the very blueprint of human thought as a tool to kind of reverse engineer our own past.
And this right here is that theoretical tool, the human thinking function. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Just think of the human mind as having a kind of factory-installed operating system. The argument is that this OS was perfected for a world that was very, very different from the one we live in now. So by understanding its core programming, we might be able to figure out what that original world was actually like.
So, what's in this operating system? The theory breaks it down into these core functions. And think about it for a second. Why do we even have a conscience? Why are we capable of forming these incredibly complex beliefs or having a sense of mission? The theory says these aren't just random features. Nope. Each one is like a fossil, a clue that points all the way back to the environment we were originally built for.
All right, with that framework in mind, let's go ahead and fire up the theoretical time machine. We're going back, way back, to a world the author calls before differentiation. A history that's deduced not from artifacts, but from the very nature of our minds. The very first clue comes from our conscience. The theory asks a really simple question. If we evolved in some brutal kill-or-be-killed world, why do we have an internal moral compass at all? The existence of conscience itself, the argument goes, pretty strongly implies that our original state must have been one of harmony and peace.
Okay, now let's layer on a few more of those functions. Belief, a sense of mission, and logic. What do you get when you combine all three of those? Well, you get the uniquely human ability for super sophisticated cooperation. The power to create shared goals and work together on incredibly complex plans. I'm talking building a cathedral or flying to the moon. This is our species' superpower.
And what does all that incredible cooperation lead to? Well, when you combine belief with logic, you get the development of knowledge, the creation of tools, and ultimately the generation of material wealth. The deduction here is that this cooperative state would have naturally led to a world of abundance, not one of scarcity.
The source uses this quote to really drive the point home. And when you stop and think about it, it's a really powerful observation. Unlike pretty much every other advanced species, our first instinct with a stranger isn't always violence. It's often curiosity, a desire to communicate. The theory sees this as a profound relic of our original cooperative nature. So, what does this all add up to? The picture this deduction paints is not of some savage brutes, it's of natural-born philosophers, beings who instead of just surviving day to day, use their incredible minds to think about the future and their place in the universe. And this, in the author's view, made them the most noble life form.
But if that's the starting point, if that's who we were, how in the world did we get to where we are now? This brings us to the great turning point in this theoretical history, a period the author calls after differentiation.
Now this slide really lays the whole theory bare. It's fascinating. On the left, you've got the deduced state of ancient humans, cooperative, living in abundance with this core status of fairness and equality. And on the right, you have us, our current state, where meeting strangers can lead to conflict over belief systems, where things like mass starvation and massacre are even possible, and where our nature is seen as selfish and conflict-driven. The contrast is just stark.
So what happened?
What single event could possibly cause such a complete 180-degree reversal? The theory gives this profound rupture in our history a single name: differentiation.
And this is the great mystery at the theory's core. The source meticulously describes the before, and it describes the after, but it never actually defines what differentiation was. Was it the rise of agriculture, some change in consciousness? It's presented as the cause of everything, but its own origin is left as this huge open question.
And this brings us right back to the central idea. The author argues that when thinkers today call humanity selfish and violent, they aren't exactly wrong about current humanity, but they are making a misjudgment by assuming this is how we've always been. They're mistaking a symptom of the afterstate for the original human condition.
So this whole deductive journey, it doesn't leave us with a neat and tidy conclusion. Instead, it leaves us with a profound and, honestly, a kind of unsettling question about our own identity.
And so the theory leaves us right here with this really unsettling question. If cooperation and harmony were our original state, then where did all the selfishness and conflict come from? What was the differentiation that changed us so profoundly? According to this line of reasoning, that's not just some historical question. It's maybe the most important question we can ask about who we are today and who we might become tomorrow.